Chow Yun-fat and Tony Leung headline an action-packed story full of shootouts, slimy villains, undercover cops, and a high-octane baby rescue. We finish up John Woo's season with arguably his most famous film from his golden era. This is Hard Boiled. Welcome everyone to the Collector's Cut. I am Peter, and joining me as always is David.
Have you got a cop here named Vodka?
It's Tequila. Welcome everyone. This is a movie podcast, and we are finishing up John Woo season today with 1992's Hard Boiled, our 7th and final episode of our John Woo Hong Kong season. And arguably his most famous movie. I feel like this is the one where you might have heard the title, you might have seen the image of him holding the baby at some point. It was just a little bit more in the Western pop culture, I think, than all of the other movies on an individual basis. But we'll find out if that is deserved as we talk about it. But I had seen this one before, a long time ago. I couldn't really remember much of the plot or the characters, though. I remembered a few key visuals, a few key moments, but that was pretty much it. But this is the only one this season I'd even seen before. But we'll start spoiler free, of course, as we always do. We'll give you warning before we get into the spoilers. And if you're enjoying the show on YouTube, hit the like button. Helps us out a bunch if you do, and give us 5 stars in your podcast app. You can also support us over at Patreon and get a bunch of bonus stuff, but I'll tell you more about that at the end of the episode. So, yeah, this is about cops versus arms dealers and a super secret base in a very public building, which I won't spoil, but lots of showdown stuff goes on at the end. Let's just say that.
Yeah. I will say this is... I don't think it's the only one. Maybe it feels like I'm forgetting one, but this is told from the perspective of the cops are the good guys, which is rare for John Woo.
Yeah, it's actually... somewhat. This isn't the only one where the cops have been the good guys, right? I mean,
that's what I'm saying. It feels like there should be another one, but I can't think of it.
Killer was like 50-50 because like we had 2 leads and one was a cop. So yeah, true. But I mean, yeah, you're right. Now I'm thinking about it, it's mostly been hitmen or gangsters or various other forms of criminals. Yeah. So
I mean, yes. We had 2, well, 1.5 that were the military were technically the good guys, but also like, you know, they're killing a lot of people.
Yes, and to be fair, the cops in this are killing a lot of people
so
as
many
well.
People.
Right? Let's be clear here. It's still a John Woo movie, and even the good tortured characters are still guilty of mowing down people, even if they're technically criminals. They're still doing it. So yeah. So we'll get into all that, of course, as we get into spoilers and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, that's the basic premise. It's Chow Yun-fat, who of course has been in several of these movies. Tony Leung was in Bullet in the Head. He was the main character in that. I mean, that was kind of an ensemble, but he was definitely one who kind of tilted into being the lead of the movie. So it feels like, hey, my 2 favorite leads is what John Woo said before he made this. I'm going to bring them together into one movie. It's going to be the be all end all John Woo movie before I go to America and start making Hard Target and Face Off.
And that is entirely, like, it sounds like a reasonable description. It's not something where it's like, oh, this is what we want to do. No, this is what they did.
Yep. So, and don't worry, if you're thinking, oh, you want to see us do those American John Woo movies, don't worry. There's plenty of 90s action seasons in the works where those will pop up.
All right.
In fact, one of them might even be done by the end of the year. Just a little tease.
Good. Fantastic.
Just a little tease.
I don't look ahead that far on the schedule. I don't really know what's happening until we're doing it. So,
but yeah, we're wrapping up this Hong Kong era of John Woo. Not that this is the last movie he ever made in Hong Kong by any stretch, but he kind of left for a while and did a lot of American movies, and then he came back and did some like big epics. He had like Red Cliff, and he's done some like historical action epics and stuff like that in recent decades. But this is kind of the end of this era of John Woo. So yeah, well, we'll get into it. David, what did you think of Hard Boiled?
I liked it. I think it was a very well-made movie. There are aspects to it that are definitely like very action-packed, very well done cinematography-wise. I will say that just to work in, that criticism I'm always going to have here, I feel like this one, I was just kind of borderline with the characters. I didn't quite like latch on as heavily as I have to like the real like Better Tomorrow and stuff like that, where like I'm really into how the characters work. And I don't know why, because looking at it, I feel like everything is there. I feel like all the puzzle pieces are present of, yeah, no, Chow Yun-fat is cool with what he does. He's basically Dirty Harry over on this side, where he doesn't play by the rules, but damn it, does he get results. Like, I like the different aspects that we got going on with Tony Leung's character. Everything seems to be working, but something by the time we hit like the end of the movie, I'm just more interested in the action aspect of it than what the characters' like personal dramas are. Maybe part of that is I don't feel like there is a major change here. It just kind of feels like subterfuge is the name of the movie rather than actually changing or learning something. But yeah, character-wise, that's probably one of the only things that I thought should have worked that didn't. Everything else, it's got a great jazzy score, several very long shots in this. I would argue to say oneers, which have a lot of action in them. Tiny little technical things I could talk about when we get to later, but overall positive experience. It's just I've latched on to every once in a while John Woo knocks the character work out of the park, and this one I was just a little disappointed that I didn't feel that way.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that this is the one that maybe is the most remembered or was the most famous for a long time. I don't know if that is true anymore, because I feel like people discovering these movies now are discovering them as a set, because they're, like if you're watching them now, you're probably watching them in some form released from Shout Factory, and they're all part of the Hong Kong Legends line. So you're probably discovering them as kind of more of a boutique of movies than one individual that's been overly recommended. And I think I kind of agree that the characters in this aren't as strong as some of the other movies. I think A Better Tomorrow, The Killer, and Bullet in the Head all have better characters. Arguably, this does have maybe some of the more impressive action out of any of the movies, which is maybe why it became the most famous and was the most remembered. I think on simple setup levels, where the entire third act is set in this one location with lots of moving parts, it was like, okay, this feels like a really good action B movie where it's setting up all these pieces so we can see them all clash against each other in the final like third of the movie. And I think on that levels, it works really well. It's just not quite as strong from a rating perspective as like a few of the other movies have been this season. So maybe it's controversial to say, but I think Hard Boiled, well, I think it's a very good action movie, is not as good as like 2 or 3 of the other John Woo movies we've done this season.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically where I was coming at it from. I think Better Tomorrow, Bullet in the Head probably over top of that. Like, it's solid action. And you said the final act is, that whole thing in the hospital. And while you're right, that's the action scene. We enter that hospital at, like, the midway point, and then it just, like, never leaves. And I'm impressed with how they managed to take this one location and just constantly make it feel like something's going on.
No, I like that, because it felt like, oh no, this is, because while I said the last third, I think it is the last third in terms of when the action actually starts.
Yeah.
But you can feel it building in that location from like, earlier. And it feels like, no, this is all pinpointing to a big showdown that's going to take place here. And I appreciate that from an action script point of view. The characters are just kind of fine though. Like, they're both cool. They both have their moments, and they both like look good in the action sequences. They just don't necessarily have the the face turns, the heel turns, the big dramatic growth moments that other movies in this series, or this season I should say, have had. So it's but it's a really good movie. I don't want to sound negative, because I'm ultimately still going to give it a pretty high score, and I think it's a lot of fun. It's just that some of these other John movies have surprised me more with like how much I've been into the actual characters and what they've been doing. And this one, like, it feels like it sets some of that stuff up, and it's like, oh, I can see where it's going with some of it. But it becomes a bit more simplistic once we actually get into the third act. But the action is so good that I wasn't necessarily that mad about it either. I was like, oh, you're going to do a whole oneer where we actually, like, in the middle of it, go up an elevator to a new floor and continue the oneer. Now, I'm sure there's some trickery in there somewhere, but I didn't notice it. I didn't feel it.
Yeah, it seemed pretty spot on to me. Like, I I appreciated the fact that like we weren't drawing attention to it, but it felt like, yeah, no, continuous action. This feels good. I will say one of the things that happens during those oneers and throughout the movie as well is John Woo has numerous shots in this movie done in slow motion. And I mean like actual honest to God slow motion of like shot in 60 frames a second or like 120 frames a second and then slowed down to 24. Like honestly slow motion. But then he also has stuff that was shot in 24 and was just like stutter framed out. And that stuff, it feels weird because it's interlaced with the actual slow motion stuff as well.
I was calling it framey because that's how it feels. Yeah. It feels framey when you do slow motion like that, where it wasn't filmed that way. And it makes sense why, because especially when it's the middle of a oneer, obviously the rest of the oneer is shot in regular speed. So it's like, oh, you wanted to slow this moment down. Maybe that was a choice you shouldn't have made, but it doesn't take me like it's still kind of a stylistic choice, like in the same way that you might want to have a lot of lens flares. If you want your slow motion to be framey, it can be an intentional thing you choose to do, and he's used it in some of the other movies as well. He's had a few framey slow motion moments, so it does seem to be something he likes.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it's a stylistic choice. It just feels maybe more so that it's used here. Maybe it's just certain sequences. It just feels like it's an abundance of it compared to previous movies that he's done. Yeah,
he's also still doing, not as maybe often as one of the other movies, but he's doing the freeze frame here or there to end the scene.
I genuinely believed that my player, and I'm still not convinced it didn't. My player that I was watching this through froze up because there's literally the first scene where our two leads meet. They first encounter each other, and like Tony Leung pulls back on Chow Yun's fat shoulder, and Chow Yun turns his head to look, and it freeze frames, and then it cuts over to a freeze frame of Tony Leung, and then they continue on with the action. I'm like, that just seems like a buffering issue, but I rewound it like 3 times, rewatched it to make sure, no, this is happening every time, and it felt weird.
I mean, yeah, I like he'd done it before, so it felt like in line with his style, and yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, obviously, it's there to punctuate. Hey, it's a big deal. They're seeing each other for the first time. This is what the moment's meant to be. But yeah, I don't know. So
I just think for anyone coming in not knowing John Woo, that's going to be like a what just happened.
Yeah, but I would say don't come to Hard Boiled looking for anything. Any depth to a story or anything kind of like that. I mean, if anything, the moral of this movie is, other cops might get killed while we're being action heroes, but that happens sometimes, so don't beat yourself up about it.
Dude, I wanted to make sure that I was like getting like character names and stuff right. So after I was done with the movie, I looked at the Wikipedia page, and like they said a little section in there of a bit that it's spoilery, but they said like a bit that happened, which is how a certain cop died. And reading the Wikipedia article, it's implicitly said of just like, and it like really messed the character up. And then I watched the movie, I'm like, he doesn't care at all. This is like nothing to him.
He's miffed for a good 10 seconds. Yeah. He has a moment, but then he moves on.
Yeah. Just like, okay, sure. I guess we got Dirty Harrys. People are going to get hurt. Why not?
I've processed this in 10 seconds, and it's time to move on with my life.
Yep.
More bad guys to get. So, so you have to kind of accept that about it. It's not going to take the loss of life in any great serious way. No.
And also, I would say for anyone, if you've been following the season, you know how, I don't want to say weird, but how crazy John Woo can get in some of the scenes. I think that the third act of this movie starts at a point and then just keeps building in weirdness. Like by the time we hit the end, I think it's like, how did we get from here from the beginning? Like from the start of this action scene, the fact that we ended up here is insanity.
Yeah, but that's the best part of the movie. That's it going nuts, and I'm all here for it. I'm just going to keep topping myself, and I'm going to leave a mark on Hong Kong cinema is what John Woo was thinking.
I mean, it worked
during all that. So yeah, it's funny because his first American movie was a year after this, so I have to assume that certainly by the time this came out, but maybe even when he was shooting this, he already knew he had a gig set up to make an American movie. So I'm just like, he's leaving nothing on the table. He's going all out. So yeah,
got to make his last little mark here, so that way when he's marketing it in America, they could be like, "Yeah, Hard Boiled. You heard of that one?"
So, yeah, Chow Yun-fat and Tony Leung, like we said, are two leads. I feel like it's a bit spoilery to get too in depth about like who they're playing per se, so I won't go too much into it. But they're kind of the leads. We have some other supporting characters though who are in here. We got like the Sard or the he's not called captain technically, but the captain of the police.
Yeah.
Precinct. Pang or
The
Pang,
chief.
sorry. We got him. We have. The character eventually was called Teresa, although most of the movie he just kept calling her Madam. It was like her nickname was just Madam. Everyone just called her that.
Yeah, that implied to me that she was in like some level of position of power, but like I don't feel like she is. I feel like
I don't think so. It felt more like a cute nickname because everyone, like, I don't know, either everyone had a crush on her, or at least it was just something that Chow Yun-fat started calling her, and it kind of caught on because he was like in a relationship with her, even though it's kind of over and whatever. So
yeah, that would be one thing of like, always saying yes ma'am sort of thing, and then it just catches on as like a derogatory.
But yeah, her name's Teresa, and she's kind of the other. And we got a villain type character as well. Johnny, who is super, he's super evil. He's got like a main henchman as well who. He started off as Shades, but he, about halfway through the movie, gets injured and ends up with an eye patch. So I'm going to call him Eye Patch for the duration of this review.
I mean, it makes sense, and I think that solely comes down to the idea of John Woo's like, nah, sunglasses are for cool, good people. I've already established that over my movies. I'm not giving sunglasses to an evil person.
Well, I just think it's funny because previous movies in this season we've had characters named Shades and Eye Patch before because it seems to be a recurring motif in these John Woo movies.
No, oh my god, dude, I can't say it yet, but he does the most brilliant thing I've seen when it comes to the doves. I love it. I'm not even sure if you noticed it, but if you did, I have to call it out.
I did laugh though because a very early scene where the first action scene takes place is in a tea house, a cafe, where there's tons of birds in cages, and I went, "What the hell is this? You've just made up a place where people bring birds to their tea breaks just so you can have lots of birds around."
I googled it because I was like, "Surely this is just a cultural thing that I'm missing out." No, John Woo's just weird. I don't know why.
Because I've heard of a cat cafe in like Japan. Yeah. But this isn't quite what that is either.
Yep. I've been to, there was a cat cafe when I visited over in London. Went to
really?
That was a fun time.
Yeah, I've heard it being, I assume it started in Japan because that's where I've heard about all the examples. But yeah, I guess it's spreading. But
everyone wants cats. That's a worldwide thing.
Yeah, well, you can pet a cat. You can't pet a bird.
You just haven't tried hard enough.
I don't think it'd be satisfying. They don't purr back at you.
They just bite your fingers and fly off, little bastards.
Oh dear. So I mean, honestly, I don't think we can go into the plot too much until we get to spoilers. But I mean, the action, like, there's a couple of notable action scenes. There's one early on which, is pretty good, particularly towards the end. There's a couple of really inventive moments and cool visuals. There's a couple things in the middle, but really the last half hour is just nothing but escalating action, and it feels like more than any of the other movies. This one is just an action movie, and I don't mean that in a derogatory sense. I just mean that Better Tomorrow is kind of like a gangster movie where there's actual like betrayals and loyalties, and like there's like a plot to it. Once a Thief, we even kind of questioned, I was questioning like halfway through, is this even much of an action movie? Is it even going to have the big third act action set piece? And it did, and ultimately I think at the end I would call it an action movie, but it was more of like a sort of lighthearted caper to a point for a good chunk of it. They all had other elements that felt like it was kind of there, and then they turned into action movies, and that's part of what made the action cool. This is the one that feels the most like a sort of American action movie in the sense that it is just about the action, and the characters are just enough to get the action justified. And that's not to say that the action's in the style of an American action movie. It's still very much a John Woo action movie, but I just mean in terms of the focus and how much depth the story has. It feels more like just an action movie.
No, to make the equivalence, which this is obviously better quality, but I would say this is like an Expendables sort of thing, where it's like, we're working our way to get up to that huge third act fight scene that's like going to take up the whole rest of the movie.
Okay, two things. One, when you said this is a better quality, obviously, I thought you meant the example you were about to give was better quality, I was like, whoa. Two, I think, I don't matter how much you prefaced that, you've offended someone in the comments by comparing Expendables to Hard Boiled. I'm just going to say it.
Absolutely. I was trying to come up with an idea of like a spectrum of like action to rest of the movie, and I feel like on one end, on the hardcore end, is the movie like Crank. I don't know what the other end would be. I guess like Pride and Prejudice or something like that. This is like at a 98%, I feel like. Maybe like 97. It's not quite at Crank levels, but it's very good.
I never actually finished Crank when I tried watching. I couldn't get into Crank.
Oh, I never even tried, but I just know by reputation.
Oh, fair enough. So... yeah, I mean, I think we'll have to get spoilers so we can start talking about it properly, but, it's very good. Like, I don't want anything we've said to sound negative, because it is a very fun, very watchable movie. I just didn't like it as much as, like, 3 of the other ones we did this season, and that's okay.
Yeah,
so
it's totally fine.
All right, spoilers for Hard Boiled from this point forth. You have been warned. So, other than some, like, mood stuff where Chow Yun-fat's in at the jazz club doing some music for the opening titles.
They keep making reference to it back throughout the movie, but that is like the only time he does anything like this, is he's just sitting there playing his little clarinet, and then the rest of the movie he's just a trained killer.
Yeah, I am pretty sure that's John Woo, who's the guy at the bar in the jazz club.
Yep.
So I've given himself another cameo. Very nice.
As he does. He's the sagely advice giver throughout the whole thing. He's the character who at no point makes any sort of mistakes or leads the character astray.
I think he was like the angry captain, and like maybe it was a Better Tomorrow one of those around there. He was the angry captain, but the real first scene of the movie is going to this cafe with all the birds in the cages, and Chow Yun-fat and his partner and a few other sort of cops, kind of as backup, are like doing a kind of a sting where they're waiting for this arms deal to go down, because these arms dealers sneak 3 handguns into the base of a birdcage, which is, I mean, it's inventive. I don't know how you can only fit about 3 guns in there, though.
Yeah, I was gonna say, hey, I wanna arm myself and my army. We're taking over this country or whatever. Can I get a bulk shipment? Yeah, that'll be 75,000 birds.
Also, it can only be handguns because you can't fit a rifle into the birdcage base.
We might have to send you like an ostrich for the bazookas. Are you okay with that?
To be fair, later on you see the warehouse for like Uncle Hoy's his whole thing, and you see them like putting guns like in the interior of a car, or like next to like the like furniture in a crate and stuff like that. It's like, oh, they've got all the options. They've really thought all this out. But no, basically, like the deal's going down, and it gets to a point where they just kind of like, all right, it's time to start blasting. It's basically it, despite the number of civilians that were around, and all that. Honestly, like, this is all well shot, and the first half of it was still well shot, but I did think, oh, there's nothing necessarily that special about this first half of this action scene. It's just fine, but in a well shot way. But then it started getting more creative, where it was like, obviously everyone's going to remember Chow Yun-fat sliding down the banister with the 2 guns, because he's dual wielding, because he picks up the 2 guns from the birdcage that was like the illegal guns, and he's like, oh, I'll do the dual wield these 2 because I'm Chow Yun-fat. But it's when it gets to more like the way the whole thing ends, where after his partner gets gunned down, which is obviously a big moment, where he dives at the bad guy, like the main one who's still left, who shot his partner. But as he's doing it, the bad guy's like shot some flour that's on the kitchen table, and he gets covered in flour. So by the time he lands and has the gun at the bad guy's head, he's covered in like just, flour, and he's got a bit of blood on him from like the partner. Or no, actually no, he's not got blood on him yet. He shoots the bad guy at point blank range out of revenge, and gets blood spatter on him, so there's blood mixed in with the flour, and I'm like, holy shit, okay, the visual of this is great, like, you've got me. However, we've got a lead character here who's supposed to be the good guy, who just assassinated the man out of cold blood for revenge.
I mean, From a visual language point of view, like, yes, you get it that this is for revenge. His partner is dead and all that sort of stuff. But I do like the fact that the movie immediately turns around with the chief coming in and it's just like, you just screwed up our whole operation, man. He was supposed to give us state evidence. Like, what are we supposed to do now? You're a cop on the edge and you don't play by the rules.
Yeah, it's the tropes. But I feel like this is I don't know. It's like almost extra like vicious than this trope usually is, where the way he like he's got him down in the ground. Like maybe just a simple shot of the guy reaching for his gun still to like sort of justify the shot would have been something. But no, he's like, no, I'm just going to kill you.
No, yeah, we hold on his face, and he's been toying with this toothpick in his mouth the whole time. He's never dropped it. And right before he shoots this guy point blank, he spits his toothpick at him, and that's just like the extra insult to injury there of like, no, not only am I going to kill you, I'm going to disrespect you beforehand.
Yeah, and he seems pretty upbeat. I mean, we get a quick funeral scene, but he seems pretty upbeat when we're back at the office, and we get introduced to, the love interest, Madam Teresa. That sounds weird to say. So I'm saying Mother Teresa. It's like Mother Teresa's cousin.
I was saying, you've got the brothel owner version of Mother Teresa.
But they set up this kind of recurring thing. One, obviously, the captain's mad at him, always. But two, that he is in a relationship or was in a relationship with Madam and is trying to sort of win her back and is very suspicious because she keeps getting flowers delivered and he's not the one sending them. But this is actually set up for all the other plot, because with the flowers there's a note with like a song lyric and she's like, oh, how does this get sung? And Chow Yun-fat's the one that says, oh, it's sung like this. And it's actually code. The music is code for a message that she's given to the captain. Now, at this point, I thought the captain was corrupt. I thought the captain was a bad guy and he was getting messages from villains. Obviously, that's not what it turns out to be. It turns out to be an undercover cop sending him messages to, intel and whatnot.
Yeah. So a couple things on that.
Go on.
I don't think I really knew how to take the cop getting the message, like the captain, because at first I thought that like maybe these were like message intercepts or something like that, because when we see the decoded message, it's not like it's, oh, we went through this heavy code and then the code on the other side, the message on the other side is easily understood. Like, no, it still is a fortune cookie that has to be decoded of like whatever the hell it's supposed to mean. But on top of that, that's the other part of it, is like, this is such a weird setup of encoding where it's not only a flower with a little note in it. I feel like that's already enough. Who's going to care to check the note on a flower? But it's a song lyric. You have to sing the song lyric, which then you translate into notes. You then ascribe each of the notes do, re, mi to 1, 2, 3 and as on. And then, just because they didn't know where to go from there, you plug it into a computer and the computer says decrypted. So it seems so needlessly complicated for all this, but
it's fun. It's about setting up kind of, because it's also kind of a red herring. The reason why I thought the captain was corrupt is because the first message said something like "stop investigating," which sounded like, oh, a criminal might be saying that. But it's actually an undercover cop saying, "Hey, you're going to like ruin what I'm doing here. Like back off a little bit."
And that's where he turns to Chow Yun-fat and says, "You're off the case because you're too damn good at this job."
And Chow Yun-fat says, screw that, I'm going to go get my intel and be a one-man army. More on that later. Because in the meantime, we get introduced to Tony Leung's character, who, so Chow Yun-fat's called Tequila. We're going to keep calling him Chow Yun-fat. Tony Leung, there's a little bit of confusion here, because both IMDb and Wikipedia just say Alan, but that was not what they were saying in my subtitles or your subtitles. It was like Long or something like that. So we'll just call him Tony Leung, so there's no confusion. But Tony Leung's introduced, and he seems like he's a bad guy because, he's suave, he's got a nice car. He comes into this library where there's a book stashed, or a gun stashed in a book, and he kills this guy for betraying the crime boss, who is Uncle Hoy. And it's like, okay, that sets up who he works for, sets up that he's a cold killer, and that's all you have, right? And also... And
immediately we get a shot of the police investigating, and Chow Yun-fat's able to, like, go into detective mode, and he figures out where the book was that had the gun in it and all that stuff.
Yeah, well, it's funny, because he sees, obviously, like, the blood that came out of the victim left, like, a perfect rectangle where a book was sitting. So he notices that, and he's like sort of like placing a book to say, okay, a book was sitting here, so what book was it? And he goes looking, and the one that was used is sticking out a little bit, And I thought, okay, I get why you checked that one, but it's a bit of a much to say that it's definitely that one. But when he pulls it out, there's blood all over the top of it, and I'm like, oh, you know what? Fair enough.
Yeah. Also, the next sequence, like, we cut to a bunch of people meeting up with Uncle Hoy, a bunch of like his buddies, and one of them says like, "Hey, I'm the one who hid the book. I did a good job at that, didn't I?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, you did a good job." The book was the complete works of Shakespeare. If you're gonna pick a book, I feel like you could pick, like, I don't know, something more dry. Like, Shakespeare seems like the one thing that might actually be checked out at some point. And I just imagine someone being like, "Oh, there's a gun in my book, ma'am. I would like to report this."
I don't know if I would agree that Shakespeare's not dry myself, but
It's dry, but like you could easily just say like, "Oh, volume 4 of the Geological Survey of the local area," or something.
my assumption is that he planted it like 3 hours ago, though, not
Okay.
weeks ago, where someone like had ample opportunity to come and check it out.
Fair enough. I mean, also just the idea that they probably wouldn't be going back for the evidence, which means that gun's just going to be sitting there for a couple weeks, and then all of a sudden some kid doing a book report's like,
Yeah, well, the criminals in this movie clearly don't care about civilians and collateral damage, so I don't think they give a shit, is my guess.
That being said, it does seem in this next sequence, as Tony Leung goes and meets up with Uncle Hoy and the gang, it does seem like Uncle Hoy does have some level of like a moral code. He's the more or the less objectable character when it comes to the crime bosses here.
Yeah, and he's not the only one, actually, by the end, who's got like, some kind of moral code versus, Johnny, who's just like, no, kill them all. Like, so, but yeah, so it sets up that someone like hired this guy that he killed, right? So there's like a rival. That turns out to be Johnny. And Johnny, to everyone's surprise, is also trying to recruit Tony Leung's character, because he calls him and says, "Hey, come and meet with me." And he does. There's another character here as well, who's like the informant, who turns out to be an informant, actually, that Chow Yun-fat goes to as well. But this informant is the one who introduces Tony Leung to Johnny, and Johnny's like, "Hey, I've been really impressed with your work. You killed my guy, but I'm impressed with how you pulled it off. Why don't you come work for me? You could make a lot more money. I'm in the arms dealing business. You'll make way more than working for that Uncle Hoy character." And Tony Leung is like, "Oh no, like I won't betray anyone. I'm loyal. I can't work for him while he's still around." And I'm like, you're practically asking him to kill Uncle Hoy.
He literally says the words like, "As long as he's around, I don't feel comfortable betraying him." And you see Johnny's eyes light up like, "Oh, 2 birds with 1 stone, no problem."
Excellent idea. It's funny though, because at this point I'm still thinking, we're in spoilers, right? So I'm still thinking Tony Leung is just a bad guy, and he's like the rival that's going to like take on Chow Yun-fat at various points.
It's just going to be the flip of the killer, where now Chow Yun-fat is the cop.
Yeah. But because we've seen him kill someone, I'm like, oh yeah, he's clearly like, yeah, they convinced me he's a bad guy. So in hindsight though, looking at this scene, I'm like, it's kind of weird how much he's suggesting. Like, you go kill Uncle Hoy.
That's the thing. Like, I mean, do we just spoil? I think we already may have said it, that Tony Leung is an undercover cop. Like, that's
the reveal. Yeah, like that. And that big reveal comes about halfway through the movie, because there's a whole thing where the Johnny's people are going to raid the warehouse where all the guns are being like smuggled from Uncle Hoy's place. And this is a big action scene in the middle of the movie. Where a lot of motorbike stuff happens. Someone raids a motorbike into someone's face pretty much in the back of a truck.
I'm glad we both caught that, because that was brutal.
It was so brutal. There's grenades getting thrown into the little office area, and all those guys are blowing up. And even the build-up to this action scene is quite good, because you've got Eye Patch guy who's currently still in his shades, but he's like leaving their base, and is this big kind of, we don't really know this is under a hospital yet, but it's this big like sort of almost sci-fi looking like corridor leading to an exit.
The underlighting. It's got the metal gratings and then light underneath, so it's all uplit.
So there's this like sense of build and anticipation to it. And it's all sort of building up to this idea that Johnny's going to make Tony Leung kill Uncle Hoy and sort of prove his loyalty to his new team and all that.
But that's why I brought up the idea that he's the undercover cop, is between the opening sequence with him and then this sequence here. I understand the idea of, I got to ingratiate I got to prove myself to them, but he's doing a lot.
Oh, he goes above and beyond. Like, he not only kills Uncle Hoy, he then gives this little smile after that sort of is trying to show Johnny that he kind of liked doing it. And then he grabs an Uzi. And after Uncle Hoy has basically said, look, I get that I'm about to be killed. This was always the end of the journey for me. I know what business I'm in. But my men, let them go. There's no reason to... Because after they've killed everyone at the warehouse, like Uncle Hoy and his men show up in cars because they've obviously heard what's happening. So they all show up and they get ambushed. And Uncle Hoy's like, look, just let my men go. I'm accepting this is happening. I'm accepting it's my time. But let them go. Tony Leung grabs one of the guy's Uzis and just mows them all down in like a moment of absolute like rage. And I was like, well, he's like on you know, off killer. Yeah. He's unhinged. He's ready to kill people. He's completely and there is one hint before this that maybe he is a good guy, but it's played well enough that it doesn't necessarily scream at you. There's a moment where after they first meets Johnny, they come out to the car and Chow Yun-fat's like in revenge mode because he knows that Johnny's the guy above all the people that got his partner killed. So they come out and his car's plastered in all the newspaper articles about like the cop killing. Yeah.
Crime syndicate busted, criminals suspected, all this stuff.
So Chow Yun-fat pops out, grabs Johnny, makes some threats, and this is the first time they meet. This is the freeze frames you were talking about earlier, but Tony Leung comes in, grabs him and punches him, and when Johnny goes to shoot Chow Yun-fat, Tony Leung pushes the gun to the side and says, hey, is that so smart to make a big scene right now? We're out in broad daylight or whatever. I'm like, okay, that was plausible enough, but that ends up being like, okay, in hindsight, he's making sure that the other cop doesn't get killed, even though he doesn't know him very well. But like, he is willing to just massacre these people in this scene.
It's like there's this like moral code in his head where he's like, okay, if they're part of the criminal empire, even if they're surrendering, I'm allowed to kill them. That's just totally fine. If they're civilians, that's no good. That's like bad. If it's a cop, I'm gonna push for the idea that we save them. But like, what happens is gonna happen. I can't do too much about that.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing. So the big reveal though is that once after he's killed Hoy and he's killed his men. Chow Yun-fat, we've been seeing him kind of sneaking about. He basically like, because we see him on the phone like before that. He's talking to like the armory for the police. He's like, "Hey, I need all the military grade stuff. I'm going in blasting."
Yeah, he spoke to the informant. The informant's like, "Here's where the warehouse is. Thank you for the money. Bye."
Yeah, so he shows up in like a tactical vest. He's got like some grenades and he's got like a machine gun and a shotgun, and he basically just throws a smoke grenade in after all this has went down. He's watched it happen, so he's let all this massacring go on because he's like, yeah, I'm happy for all these guys to die. And then once that's over, he throws in a smoke grenade and rappels down, just mowing down bad guys with a machine gun on his way down. And everyone basically leaves except Tony Leung, who sort of stays to have a one-on-one kind of like shootout with Chow Yun-fat. And the big thing at the end is that when they eventually, after a lot of ducking and diving, try to shoot each other, they get face to face, guns pointed at each other's head, point blank, and Chow Yun-fat's empty. And it's kind of like, oh, is Tony Leung also empty? But then the way he kind of clicks the gun, Chow Yun-fat knows that he's not.
Yeah. He has the hammer drawn back, and then after Chow Yun-fat takes his shot, he undoes the hammer. Like, he puts it back up so it won't fire. Yeah. And he's just like, all right, bye.
Yeah, he just gives him a smile, and he leaves. And Chow Yun-fat basically puts two and two together and gets mad and starts like, you know, he yells at the captain like about how you didn't tell me there's an undercover cop, you bastard.
Yeah, and he's just like, I told you not to be a part of it. Yeah, I told you not to go out there. How could I have predicted that this cop that doesn't play by the rules wouldn't play by the rules? Silly me. Yeah,
so it's not actually that long before he goes to like, because Tony Leung lives on a boat, right? And he's got this whole gimmick where he makes little paper cranes every time he kills someone, as if that's meant to represent his guilt for all the people that he's killed.
Yeah, because he explicitly says in the next conversation, he's like, I hate making paper cranes, but it's, I guess, penance or whatever else like that he's trying to do here. I do like there's a little mini scene showing him sailing out on the boat on the water after the whole shootout, and you know he's upset. He despite him being an undercover cop, he is upset like, over the just screaming the then he gets over it, I guess.
Yeah. Honestly, I wish the movie just did a sort of little flashback to him just mowing down like 7 men in once at that moment, just to really sell it.
It would have been great. I mean, they do the flashbacks. That's during the detective mode scene earlier on. They do flashbacks to a scene we literally just finished in order to show exactly how he's matching up the movements.
But it's like, okay, this is intriguing. It's like, okay, we now know that he's actually an undercover cop, deep undercover, very convincing, and now Chow Yun-fat has to kind of wrestle around that. So, okay, ultimately they're going to work together. That's kind of inevitable now at this point.
Yeah.
And Chow Yun-fat shows up quite quickly, and like they have a little bit of a standoff, but it's more like, hey, bitch, tell me about what you're doing and like why you're doing it.
Yeah, they have a standoff, but Chow Yun-fat immediately gets a drop on him. They have a little talk. We get a little philosophical of like, you make all these cranes for others that you kill. Who will make a crane for you? But then all of a sudden his skylight is kicked in. He gets shot in the back. Tony Leung does. And
yeah, that seems to be leftover men from Uncle Hoy who want revenge for the death of Uncle Hoy. This seemed to be.
Okay, so I was torn between that, or I was torn between somebody who was working for Johnny and was like sent to investigate him and make sure he was on the up and up, because they're still kind of doing initiation with him. And
I think there
was
good. I want to say there was like one line, because they call him a traitor, but I mean, I suppose technically they could be saying he's a traitor to Johnny, but I took that as no, you were a traitor to Uncle Hoy and got him killed. Because when Johnny and the like his men are coming in cars in a minute in the docks, Tony Long's like, hey, go away, Johnny's coming, you go and hide. And he's like, all right, I'll dive in the water. And he just dives in the water, and that's it.
Whatever, out. And then the guy who's still like, he's out, but he's still awake. He's just like, oh, you're a traitor. And then Tony Leung just unloads a clip in him as Johnny's walking up, and he's just like, this guy, he shot me. He was awful. He was the worst. And Johnny's like, you're one of the good ones, Tony. Thank you.
Yeah, which maybe implies to me that it was Uncle Hoy's men coming for revenge, because the way Johnny also says, "Oh, you'll be under my protection now," kind of made it feel like, at least
that makes more sense
on surface level. I mean, again, maybe it was Johnny's men secretly, and he's like in like a sort of racketeering sense of like, pay his protection money or I'll shoot you kind of thing. But it makes more sense to me that this was Uncle Hoy's like leftovers who were coming for one last hurrah, effectively.
No, that's fair. I get that. Earlier on, there was the meetup between the captain and Tony Leung, where he's like, "Oh yeah, how's the mission going? Like, let's do a meetup."
The only one who knows my real birthday is the captain.
Yes, today's my birthday, and you're the only one in all of Hong Kong who knows. But he passes as a birthday gift a lighter over to Tony Leung, which in pretty much the next scene after Johnny's like, "Oh, we're gonna get you protection. We're gonna do whatever." By the way, we found out that informant, turns out he's an informant, and we're going to go kick his ass. So we get that sequence.
Yeah, so basically, Tony Leung's like, hey, let me do it, let me kill him. But he slips something in his pocket, something metal to stop a bullet.
The lighter.
Yeah. And he shoots him, he falls in the water, but he's fine. Well, he's not fine, he's still in pretty bad shape, all things considered. But, you know, like, he gets to Chow Yun-fat, and Chow Yun-fat takes him to the hospital. Which, would you believe it, our criminal mastermind Johnny basically owns this hospital. Now,
can I just rewind that just for a minute? You say, "Can you believe it?" But to be clear, the informant says, Johnny, all of his stuff, his vault with all of his guns, is underneath the hospital. It's in the hospital. Like, that's the thing. And Chow Yun-fat says, "Okay, this guy just almost got killed by Johnny and Johnny's men. And he's saying that Johnny and Johnny's men run this hospital. I'm going to take this man for medical care to the hospital of the men that he's just killed."
No, that's not an accident. That's not some dumb decision. That is him saying he wants to go look at this hospital, and this is the perfect excuse to go into the hospital.
Right. No, don't get me wrong. From the viewpoint of let's solve the case, absolutely. From the viewpoint of let's save the informant's life, he's an asshole.
Yeah, because he mentions this, and they go to the hospital, and because he wants to like look around, and he wants to like start getting the lowdown on everything. But obviously, because when he said he owns the hospital, I wasn't sure how literal he was meaning. Like, okay, does he mean in the same way that a criminal might say he owns a cop, in the sense that, oh, I've got friends there who'll do whatever I say, so therefore I own it? Or does he literally own the building? And the fact that he's built a secret lair underneath it would suggest that he does own the building. Now, obviously, the only people in the hospital that seem to be bad guys, though, are the guards who work for him directly. Obviously, the doctors and the nurses, they're all innocent. They're all just working at a hospital. They've got a job.
I mean, you've got a couple. I think there's like one doctor who's extremely douchey when it comes to the evacuating patients part of things, but it doesn't seem like he's on the take. It just seems like he's like, no, these people need care, and we got to keep them here to do that.
Yeah, there's literally a surgery going on right now. We have to keep the surgery going. What are you doing? So,
and then none of the cops say this, but I feel like one of them should be like, is the surgery going to be okay if an explosion happens? If a bullet rips through there? Because I'm going to say probably not.
Yeah, but this is actually like where it starts to build to its big third act climax. You know, like Madam comes down, right? Chow Yun-fat calls her in, and like she comes in and she actually recognizes, because the other thing that happens here is that Tony Leung, who's still with like Johnny, and they find out because they've been called by the hospital, hey, that guy you're supposed to have killed has shown up at the hospital. He's getting medical care
with a cop.
Yeah, and Tony Leung's like, okay, I won't fail this time. Let me do it. And he basically, and I don't know if this, because it's like only a year after, so it might be too quick for it to be intentional homage, but it's so Terminator 2, the way he hides a gun in the box of flowers.
Oh, yeah.
And the way he's walking in with it under his arm, I'm like, either this is an extreme coincidence, or you slipped this in as soon as you saw T2 and you thought it was cool.
Entirely. I mean, I don't know about flowers, but like, there's a history in film of hiding guns in like instrument cases and briefcases and stuff like that.
But you know, when he's walking in with the box of flowers, though, Madam recognizes the flowers as the ones that get sent to her, and you know, she's like giving them the eye, like, oh wait, is this the guy that sends flowers? But it's all building up, but I love though that when she comes out of the hospital, and I think even before she finds Chow Yun-fat, she walks past the maternity ward and she starts having this sappy moment where she's looking at all the babies. Look at the babies, they're so beautiful.
John Woo, please stop taking characters who by all rights should be badasses that are female and just boiling them down to this character is a woman.
Yes.
Because it's getting obnoxious now, man.
I think that's a very fair statement. Now, I like that she's proactive. I do like that she is, you know, in charge of the evacuation and all that. I also think this isn't her line per se, but later on, there's a moment. This is what she gets to shoot one guy later on, right? She gets to shoot one bad guy who comes up to her. And the thing that stuck out to me about this is that before she shoots him, he slaps her across the face and calls her a smelly bitch. Now, I get an asshole calling a woman a bitch. That's a pretty common thing. But the word smelly is so weirdly specific that I don't understand why it was chosen.
I have to assume it's a cultural thing.
Maybe.
Like, it's just like maybe the translation is lacking somehow. And this is like equivalent of like a curse or something.
Like maybe it literally means smelly when you translate it, but it's like a common insult in Hong Kong.
Yeah,
maybe. Yeah,
that's all I can think. But to be clear, that is a payoff to earlier on, where once the hostage situation starts going on, she's already trying to take care of the babies, and one of the guys just shouting orders, and she slaps the guy and says,
"That's right.
Be quiet. You wake the babies."
Yeah, so she's got balls on her, which is nice, but you're right. Like, that's overly, like, mother instinct kicking in is very, very cliche. But
so, just to rewind slightly, before all that happens, we do have Tony Leung goes into the room where the informant should be, or at least should be, but he's tipped off beforehand by, I think, Tony, who like hands a paper crane to a nurse and says, could you deliver this into that room?
Because he knows what that means. He's like, oh, paper crane, that's a message from Tony Leung. So he wheels him into the room across the hall and then waits for whoever's going to appear, which ends up being Tony Leung.
And Tony knows that he's also being followed by Johnny's men, who are there to make sure he finishes the job properly, that he is to be trusted. And that's where he busts in, takes some shots, and he's like, uh-oh, he's not here. Who could have seen that coming? So eventually he meets up with Chow Yun-fat, and they start coming up with a plan.
However, as they are discussing their plan, across the hall, informant realizes he's maybe in danger, although I actually think he's an idiot for leaving the room, because it felt like they wouldn't have known specifically to look in here, but he wheels out into the hall, and very quickly, Eye Patch, who's dressed with a surgeon mask on, just shows up and unloads into him.
Look, you're calling him an idiot for that. This is also the man who's like, by the way, I'm hooked up to oxygen. Can I have a cigarette? And Chow Yun-fat's like, you're going to explode, man. And he's like, yeah, just turn it off. Whatever. Just give me a cigarette.
True. He's not the brightest bulb. I'll admit that. But this is particularly notable because he gets him killed.
Yeah, I was also during that sequence, he comes up with the surgery and, you know, he uses a scalpel because, of course, if he's dressed as a surgeon, you got to kill with a scalpel. But I especially appreciate the fact that he hit the jugular and, like, on this window, there's just a huge splatter of blood. just massive. And then later on, when they're like, "Oh, where could he be? What's going on?" I'm like, "You didn't see the giant splatter of," and they never draw attention to it.
Yeah, but
it's like little drippings on the floor. They notice.
I did love the shot though when he did slit his throat. It cut inside the room where someone's feeding a patient, and you just see the splatter in the window appear in the background. I thought that was a really nice moment. That was very cinematic.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not thinking it's a thing that like they have to notice this shot, but it's so over the top huge of a splatter. I'm like, somebody should have turned around and seen that.
Yeah, because there's some stages here as things are building up on the surface, and it's like, hey, you know, madam, I'll send you flowers to let you know it's time to evacuate. Which turns out later to be that he just slipped one in her pocket so that she finds it in her pocket in 20 minutes. And it's like, she might never have found that. She might have literally went all night without looking in her pocket, but
I just imagine an alternative of this entire thing where like the C4's been planted, everything's about to explode, and she's like, I found a flower. We need to get these patients out of here.
Boom.
Yeah. Whoops.
So, but yeah, there's a whole segment here where like the two cops go down and they're trying to find the secret base and all that. So there's a whole like, oh, there's a secret entrance in the morgue behind some of the morgue doors and whatnot.
I think Madam somehow gets like the architecture stuff and says like, oh, there's a lot of reinforced steel in this vault in the morgue area, so maybe that's where we want to take a look at. Yeah,
so we do a whole thing here where they actually go inside and they get trapped because the door shuts behind them, and then like Eye Patch is waiting on the inside and like shoots at them and traps them in, and there's also a whole section first where they're trying to open the door, and it ends up being this weird, let's pour gunpowder into this pipe with electrical cables inside it and shoot the bullet with all the gunpowder. I don't know, it was like a whole weird little section, actually.
I felt like, as the scene was going on, this was the, okay, we're forced to slow down, we're forced to talk to each other, and we discover a bit more about each other. Because they've only really had, like, one conversation up to this point. So I thought that's what the sequence was. And to be fair, Chow Yun-fat does get loud. He does get like emotional here when he's like arguing with him. But it's all in the vein of, if you can't open the stupid door, then let me do it. It's nothing like personal where we're discovering things about each other.
Yeah, there is like a line at one point where he talks about Tony Leung wants to move to Iceland when everything's over. So he's away from everyone else, and it's like daytime most of the time. So that's appealing to him. He's like, all right, because he's in the dark. He's been in the dark too long. He's been an undercover cop.
he's made his plans for what he wants to do as soon as this is over. And boy, howdy, we're just 2 days from retirement.
We'll see how that works out for him. Which is not to say that this is all bad per se, but it definitely is kind of the little stalling point before the big stuff kicks off, which is, you know, once they start evacuating, there's a nice sort of idea upstairs where Madam's waiting to wait for the message, and she thinks that she's going to be forced to like go in for a doctor's appointment or something because she's been lying about why she's
sitting
there.
In the waiting room. She's just like, oh, let all the other patients go, and she looks around. She's like, oh, I'm the only one. I feel fine. Don't worry about it.
But then the captain shows up dressed as a doctor, and she looks around, and there's basically a bunch of other cops who are all in either civvies or got doctor's coats on. Like, they're all kind of influenced. Like, okay, this is cool that we're setting this up. There's a lot of pieces been put in play. And then it's like, okay, I found the flower. We have to evacuate. So we're going to start doing that. So we have like all these moving innocent people that are injured, like walking slowly downstairs, and nurses try to help them and stuff like that.
Yeah. One of the doctors is like, I'm not going to evacuate. Like, you haven't told me like what's the actual emergency going on. And then she just goes over with her heel and like smashes the fire alarm. And she's like, oh, now you got to evacuate because there's a fire. You can't prove there isn't.
The doctor does actually, at least for a couple of seconds, be like, it's okay, everyone, there's no fire, it's just fine, just stay where you are.
Everyone go back to your rooms. And they're like, no.
So, and then by the time this is all going down, like, our two guys end up blasting their way. They end up coming out of where the morgue is, because they put C4 on the wall to get out. But by this point, Johnny's in like the control room of the hospital, be like, okay, lock all the doors. Let's start sending men around with guns and take hostages. And it turns into our third act. This is where it really kicks into high gear, and we get numerous sequences where, okay, Madam's going to try and like get the babies out, right? But it doesn't work because the men with guns show up, and all of a sudden we get like a main hostage situation, which actually leads to one of my favorite little moments in the whole third act. Is after our two lead characters get up to like where they are, more or less, they do a whole thing where they have a little shootout, which is some fun stuff there, but they take out a couple of bad guys. And Tony Leung dresses as one of the guards, one of the villainous guards. Yeah. And he comes in holding Chow Yun-fat at gunpoint. But as they come in and it's kind of revealed by the camera moving to the side, oh, it's Tony Leung, and he nods at the captain, who's one of the hostages, and Chow Yun-fat nods at Madam, and then they're all nodding at all the other cops in the room, and it's basically just all saying, hey, protect the hostages because we're about to start blasting. So Madam and the captain and the other cops all just dive at the hostages and like try and like pin them down so that they're like all the like the heights clear for the two main characters to just start mowing into the hostage takers.
All the hostage takers have surrounded themselves with the hostages from all angles. So it's like this complete circle. And then look, the movie did a good job with it. I guess I'm aware of the trope. As soon as Chow Yun-fat is brought in with his hands up high, and there's a guard that they refuse to show the face of behind him. I'm like, I wonder what happened to Tony Leung. But yeah, as soon as that happens and all the cops like push the patients down, and it almost looks like a flower, like
it's like a circle,
sort of thing.
It's like a circular kind of thing. So it's just very visually cool to look at.
Yeah, and then Chow Yun-fat just takes them all out. It's a great sequence, and from there on, it basically just leads into one scene after another, like everything going on.
Do you know what I like about it as well, that moment, is that typically in movies like this where you've got the hard-edged cop and the captain's kind of a pain in his ass about saying, don't do this, don't do that. Typically they're made out to be pretty incompetent, right? And like the other cops are usually just nothing characters. I actually kind of like that this was like, hey, the rest of his like colleagues are all competent people who knew they were in a situation and all work together here. It was actually kind of nice to just have them all work efficiently together for a scene.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, from there, everyone also gets their own orders of like what they need to do and all that, which is where we get Madam going up to the pregnancy ward, whatever you want to call it, the baby ward.
The maternity ward, I believe, is the correct term.
Yes, that's it. I couldn't remember it. I was going to say the NICU, but I was like, it's too niche. Because they can't get out through the front door, they have like a SWAT team that's essentially like going up to the window where they have the babies at, and they're just taking them down by rappelling one by one, which of course is very slow, very laborious, and every once in a while, video game style, a bad guy pops out of a nearby window and just starts shooting at them.
And then once the explosions start, you occasionally get some like just fireballs coming out of various windows as well. So they're in like constant duress. It's all very exciting, and especially when you get to the point where there's only one left and it's like, hey, Chow Yun-fat, you have to get the last baby, and that's where all the famous images of him holding a baby in the shotgun and trying to like just shoot bad guys whilst protecting a he even takes a bullet to a shoulder, which I thought was quite darkly funny, because if it was the other shoulder it'd be the baby's head, because that's where the baby's head is on the other side.
No, what got me in that shot was he takes the shot to the shoulder and then keeps on shooting whatever, he does whatever, and he looks down at the baby and the baby's just splattered with his blood, and I'm like, oh my god. And he's like, that's all right, we'll just wipe that off, no problem. The baby's just cooing. That's it, though. Yeah, that's the other thing. The entire time that he's doing this, he puts cotton in the baby's ears so he can't hear anything.
Yeah, so that the one last baby comes after all the big Wonner stuff, though, right? So you've got Chow Yun-fat and Tony Leung just side by side going down hallways and around corners. It's all one shot, and the design of this hospital is kind of like there's kind of like a central room and then like a square hallway going all the way around it. So there's a lot of turns to make and all that. And they eventually, and when you realize it's all in one shot, because there's all these squibs and gunshots happening, it's actually quite impressive. And it gets to the elevator, and Tony Leung like just instinctively shoots the guy in the elevator, and then it freezes up because he thinks, oh shit, I just shot a cop. I just shot someone I shouldn't have. Yes. And that's kind of the break in the middle. It's still a Wonner. We still keep the shot going inside the elevator, but Chow Yun-fat's like saying, no, it wasn't a cop, damn it, right? Trust me, it wasn't a cop. But then he kind of admits a minute later, yeah, it was, but I got a cop killed at the start of the movie, and I've moved on, so man up. And I'm like, okay.
I've been over that since 5 minutes after it happened. Get over it.
And I'm like, all right, you know what? Action movie logic, I'll go with it, but certainly no one take any morals from this movie, because it's all over the place.
No, although... pretty much right after that, once we get done with the Wonners and all that, I want
to point out though, the Wonner does keep going for a little bit after they get out the elevator. It's not over at that point.
No, there is one particular part of the Wonner where they were doing so well, and this was the one bit that like maybe it's the only time I really noticed it. They were turning a corner, and you could tell the camera just couldn't move fast enough of what they needed for like pacing wise, so they sped up. They sped up the turn around the corner, and it's super visually obvious that this is like sped up footage as they're going around, because there's all this dust and debris in the air, and you could easily tell they're like, oh, this is just moving a lot quicker. But no, the some point after that, we do get a standoff between Eye Patch and Tony Leung.
Well,
And
it's actually all three of them for a bit, and then Chow Yun-fat leaves to go and help with the baby thing, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
before we get to the standoff, though, I want to point out that the gunfight between Tony Leung and Eye Patch, I really like how they're not that far away from each other, but it's very dynamic, though, because they're in this room and they're constantly moving to new cover. Like they'll fire a couple of shots and they're constantly moving around, so that it's like they're always evolving into new cover. So it's very dynamic the entire time.
let me be clear. Eventually, in this movie, some explosions go off. The explosions never break a window because every window's already been broken by these men diving through them.
Oh yeah, when Eye Patch Guy first shows up, there's this really funny bit. And I say funny in the sense where it's like I thought it was like amazingly funny in an action movie sense, where Tony Leung and Chow Yun-fat, like Chow Yun-fat dives through a door and then Tony Leung dives through the window right in front of the door, but then Eye Patch Guy dives in the opposite direction through the window he's next to, so he's basically diving into the hallway they were in, and I'm like, this is blowing my mind how much diving through things is happening in the span of like 10 seconds.
I loved it. I just wanted them to keep going. I wanted to be like the Scooby-Doo like hallway door scene, but with just diving through windows and doors.
But to set up the thing I think you're about to get to is there was a quick scene with Johnny where Johnny's like, aha, like, you know, like all these patients are my hostages. And Eye Patch kind of steps forward and says, hey, like, why do we have to like hurt let the patients go? They're you know, innocent people. And Johnny's like, I don't care. No one gets in my way.
I can kill anyone to get what I want.
So we get to this bit at the end of the shootout when it's just the two of them, and they end up falling into the hallway where a bunch of like stranded passengers and one nurse are kind of like been sort of cuddled together, and they're both out of ammo, right? They both take a shot at each other, they're out of ammo, and all these people are in between them. And basically, Tony Leung is like, hey, let the patients go or whatever, and Eye Patch...
Well, he doesn't even talk to Eye Patch. He like they have like an undescribed, like unspoken thing where they come to an understanding.
Yeah.
And then he just turns to the nurse and is like, get the patients out of here. And
it's like
she starts moving them. It starts going.
And it's like, hey, he's got a little bit of a moral compass in him. He's got a sense of honor. He wants to let the innocent people go.
Yep.
And then as it's happening, like 5 seconds later, Johnny and the boys walk in the room and just mow them down with machine guns. And it's actually Johnny who kills Eye Patch Guy, because Eye Patch Guy is not happy about this, gets in his face, and Johnny just blasts him with a shotgun.
He shoots the Uzi out of Johnny's hands, and then I think he takes like a single stomach shot at Johnny, and that's where he runs out of ammo, and Johnny's like I've still got an Uzi.
But it's just funny to me that after all that shootout stuff, all that one-on-one, one-on-two action, that eventually it was just Johnny killing Eye Patch Guy.
Which this was the thing I had for a lot of the movie is Johnny was an okay villain. I don't think there was ever a point where, you know, he's an upstart. He's someone who was just taking what other people had. It felt like he wasn't that brutal. He was more so just taking the steps, you know? It just felt like he was doing what was expected of him. At this point, when he walks in and just immediately shoots civilians, not even Eye Patch, but just civilians, I'm like, oh, okay, no, he's a monster. He's irredeemable.
He is cartoonishly evil by this point in the movie. And then, you know, that only just kind of rises up for the finale moment. But so Tony Leung's like sort of in retreat at this point because, oh shit, like they've got a lot of guns and he's kind of out of this.
And they've been planting C4 everywhere as well. They've got explosives all over the hospital.
Yeah. Also, I think when this was way back before even the hostage kind of like double like, you know, bluff moment. But when at one point they come firing out of an elevator and Tony Leung like dives onto like a hospital tray and like goes sliding down a hallway, shooting into different rooms at bad guys.
Yeah, that was there was also when they were trying to get into the morgue. Chow Yun-fat dressed up as a doctor and was like trying to wheel in a dead body cart.
That's right.
He's just like, oh yeah, you know, I gotta get it. And then he attacks some guys. He kicks the cart and then comes sliding out of the cart as Tony Leung taking out the rest of them.
Make no mistake, this last half hour is like full of these moments that are great.
The moment they enter this hospital, it just keeps going. Like there's no point where the action comes to a full dead stop, save for that moment they get stuck in the room together. But that is it.
And, you know, like, so all this is happening. They're getting patients out. There's like everyone outside, there's news reporters outside talking about hostages, there's this fireballs happening, the C4's been planted and starts going off all over the place. All that stuff is happening. And ultimately, like, I mean,
I think it's when Chow Yun-fat is like, he's about to go for the last baby, or he's going to check up on Madam.
Yeah.
That's where he gets his last little thing with Tony Leung, and it's like, hey, we got to get out of here. We got to do what we can. But then Tony Leung sees Johnny getting away. He's going like deeper into the hospital. He's going to get away. And Tony Leung's like, I got to go after him. It's my thing. I got to do it.
And it doesn't go super well for him, because ultimately when we get the final standoff, it's Johnny holding Tony Leung hostage. And obviously there's a whole action bit of Chow Yun-fat diving out the window with the baby and all that.
I need to talk about that. I need to talk about that so badly. So he's got the last baby. We get a whole sequence in the middle where like he's stuck in one of those big open center rooms, and like he's basically just doing a shootout game where he's got to like see people sneaking up on him and shoot him beforehand. He's singing a rap to this child to try to calm it down. Okay. But the bit that gets me is finally the C4's going off. Explosions going, and he's outrunning them. It's a full-on action movie set piece. And then eventually he reaches like the end of the floor. He needs to jump out a window, but it's too high up. So he grabs some cabling and he starts ripping it out of the wall to use as a rope. Already over the top. As he's finally about to reach the window, the explosions have caught up with him. His pants catch on fire. And this man, he stops what he's doing. He's like, oh no, my pants are on fire and I've got a baby in my hat. I can't do anything about this. I'm going to go up in flames. And the baby pisses on him and puts out the flames. And I lost my shit, because like the movie's had its moments. The movie's had its moments of over the top action or whatever like that, but it's never gotten this cartoonish, and I just couldn't stop laughing for a solid like 30 seconds at how outlandish this was.
Yeah, but he dives out the window, holding the cable, it barely lands on his feet, gets over to the others, and we get our final standoff because Johnny comes out, holding Tony Leung in front of him, who's wounded, and basically, like, Chow Yun-fat, like, walks forward, right? All the other cops are behind him holding their guns, but he walks forward with his gun up, and ultimately, he's like, put your gun down or whatever, and it becomes this really, like, emasculating thing where Johnny's trying to show how much more dominant he is, where he's like, hey, if you don't want me to shoot him, slap yourself, and he makes Chow Yun-fat slaps himself. He's like, slap the other cheek, and he slaps the other cheek. He's like, get on your knees, and he's like, say you're impotent. He's like, all right, fine, I'll say it. And he's like, take off your pants. He's like, where are you going with this? How far are you going to go with this, Johnny? And the whole time, Tony Leung's like being held hostage, and he's like, just take the shot. Go and do it. Like, he's basically in Speed. He's like, shoot the hostage. Just do it.
That's what I'm saying. Did we see Speed? Has Speed come out yet?
Not
I can't
yet.
remember the release year of Speed.
Not yet. 2 years later.
All right.
But Tony Leung just grabs Johnny's gun to put an end to this right now, and puts it. I thought he was going to shoot through himself at Johnny, but he just like shoots himself in the stomach so that he goes down, and it gives Chow Yun-fat the chance to just take the shot, because he was looking at his face, he was thinking about it before, but once this happens, he's like, all right, I'm going for it, and he shoots him right in the eye. It's almost a callback to Heroes Shed No Tears. Right in the eye, bullet goes through his head and kills him, and that's it. And it looks like Tony Leung died. It looks sad for a minute, as it seems like they're all like burning his paperwork, but it turns out the little twist at the end is that he lived, and they're actually erasing all of his paperwork so that no one can ever find him, so that the triads can never locate him. He gets to go sail off to Iceland. Admittedly, I think you need a bigger boat to sail all the way to Iceland. I don't think you can go in that little thing, but
yeah, not from Hong Kong. Definitely not that quick.
Maybe go and get a flight or something. Although I don't think he's got a passport, admittedly. But, he can figure it out. He's a resourceful man. He can do it.
Yep. And then it's just jazzy outro. The whole soundtrack's had this very jazzy feel to it the whole time.
Yeah. No, for sure. And also around here, obviously, Madam hugs Chow Yun-fat and seems to not be as mad at him because, hey, he's been helping save babies and generally been a hero. So I'll roll with it.
I was waiting for, like, because we had already crossed the outlandish threshold with the baby peeing on his pants, I was expecting the, like, big hug and then just, why do you smell like pee?
Luckily, all of the explosions and gunfire are probably covering the smell. The smell of burning and like fires and whatnot is probably masking it all. So,
yeah, probably.
that'd be my guess. I do love though that a couple of parents show up and say, "Oh, thank you, my baby," and they take it. And I was like, "How do you know it's your?" But like, I guess it was the only one that was left, but still.
There's one doctor, because like, they're dropping babies down one by one, and then some parents come up, they pick up the baby, and they walk away. And there's one doctor at one point who says, "Everyone, please make sure you're taking the correct baby." And I'm like, how? I've seen no name tags. I've seen that. It's not even a thing where it's like, oh, well, it's my child, I'll know. This baby has been separated from you, like, and you've only known it for like 3 hours, probably. So, like, what are you talking about? I just imagine, like, 5 years after this movie came out, a news stories run where it's like, DNA tests show that, like, all these babies that were born in this hospital were all switched, probably from when it blew up.
Yeah, I mean, it's, obviously there's some ridiculousness to it, but like it's hard to fault most of the action in that last half hour, because it just it keeps being fun, it keeps being inventive with how it's shot, or with how they're using the environment, whether that's sliding on trolleys or hospital stretchers, or whether they're doing runners or whatever it is, right? Like the way everything's sort of playing off, you've set everything up, you've got all these innocent hostages, you've got all the bad guys, you've got the undercover cops. It all comes together. It all just keeps playing off of each other in a way that's very satisfying.
I think it's especially telling that, we go into the sequence because, yes, there's the idea that underneath this place is the vault for all the stuff, but it does seem like, okay, maybe we're only in this sequence for as long as it takes for the informant to get killed or whatever else like that. And then we'll dip out and we'll eventually end up in the warehouse district or the docks or something like that. A more standard place to have the big shootout at the end. But then as soon as we introduce the idea of like, we're taking hostages, I'm like, oh no, we're staying here. This is the end of the movie, is all going to be here at the hospital. And for however much time we set up beforehand of being in it, it's always inventive with the way that it continues the action flow. It doesn't feel like at any point we're retreading ground of like, oh, well, we already saw this sequence with the elevator or whatever like that. It's always different.
Yeah, well, it's a good big location for something like this, because one, obviously you've got all the natural innocent people to protect, so you've got just stakes built in, but you've got a big location with varied parts of it. You've got like the more officey areas, you've got the actual wards, you've got a fairly tall building usually with several floors. You can use that height to your advantage. Like there's a lot going on here, in the same way that if you set like an action showdown in like a school, or any type of big building that has justification for all these different areas and pockets and corridors that you can use and feel like they're all distinct parts of like one big location. So, it's a smart place to set an action movie. You could do a whole Die Hard movie in a hospital if you wanted to. I don't know if someone's done that yet, but you could.
I wouldn't be surprised. I feel like that's something that's probably sitting somewhere in the annals of early 90s action movie.
I mean, it's a big enough location for that, but because this is only the back half of the movie, it gets to never feel like it's outstaying its welcome in the location either. So, no, all good fun stuff. I mean, really, it all just comes back down to, the characters aren't necessarily as strong with their stories as some of the previous movies in this season.
Yeah, because I mean, if you really look at the main two characters and say, okay, how did they change? Like, what did they go through? The end of the movie is basically, okay, Tony Leung was always an undercover cop, but now he is a cop. Like, he sacrifices his life to catching a criminal, which it already felt like that was kind of what he was doing. And then Chow Yun-fat, he's willing to demasculate himself for all of 30 seconds. Like, I don't even know if that's a character arc. Like, he is functionally the same character at the end that he was at the beginning.
Yeah, I don't really think he has much of a character. I mean, I thought maybe where it could have more of an arc is that he would kind of change in the way that Madam wants him to change. Like the way that, the reason why she's dumped him in the first place is the thing that he would maybe fix. But they never really go into it enough to really get a sense of like what it was. No. So
I honestly, there was a conversation very early on that I felt like it was talking about that, but in the end, she was kind of just closed off. I think it was something of like, he asked if she likes white roses, and she's like, "Oh, shouldn't you know that by now?" I'm like, is this the thing? Is it that he doesn't listen? Is it that he wasn't like participating in the relationship? But they never go deeper into it. So
Yeah, but then she sees him holding a baby at the end and is like, okay, well, there you go.
oh,
That's
well,
it.
my ovaries just exploded. So yeah, no, I'm absolutely into this.
Oh, dear. All right, well, with all that said, David, what are you rating Hard Boiled out of 10?
I kind of knew my rating going into this one. I've become finally attuned to John Woo. I know where my ratings lie with him. And I don't think it really changed over this one. The action sells the movie as long as you're okay with that. Character work is going to take a little bit of a hit, but it's still just fun top to bottom. So I'm going to give this one a very solid 8 out of 10.
I was thinking the exact same numbers, just a straight 8. It's not as good as Bullet in the Head or Better Tomorrow. Maybe arguably The Killer as well.
Yeah.
But depending on your taste. But it's really solid, it's really fun, and a good time. So there's Hard Boiled.
And I think we can agree makes the cut.
Yeah, it makes the cut. I think that's fair to say. But I mean, well, I started this by saying, hey, like, we'll see if this deserves to be the one that's the most well known. And honestly, no, like I would put like 3 of these above it. So
yeah, I still think like the one that's gonna, I don't know if it's best, but the one that's lodged in my head the most is Better Tomorrow. Like that one is just so effortlessly cool the whole way through. It's got the most style to it in terms of like character work. I think it's just the one that has most solidly worked for me.
Yeah. And the action's arguably gotten better throughout the season for the most part, more inventive. His quality of writing for female characters has not got gotten better. In fact, if anything, it might have even gotten a little bit worse at certain points throughout the season.
Yeah.
So there's positives, there's negatives, but generally speaking, a lot of cool movies have been in there. So successful season, I would say. I'm glad we did this one. It was a nice trip through a little era of a director's career.
Now, Peter, can I please, for the first time in like 2 months, not have a movie with subtitles?
You can, because ladies and gentlemen, next week there are 2 collector's cuts coming your way. But the week after, there's no collector's cuts coming your way. So basically, if you're not familiar, we also do the sci-fi movie podcast, The Atomic Cinema Experiment. So we have that coming out on Tuesdays. Collector's cut comes out on Saturdays. Basically, collector's cut is getting both days next week, and then to make up for that, the following week, Ace is getting both days the following week. So nice and simple. But the reason for that is so that we can do the old Supergirl next, and then the new Supergirl on the weekend, so it's not waiting too long before the new Supergirl movies got the review out. So
while we appreciate the schedule, we appreciate the algorithm more.
Yeah, so that's what we're doing next. We're doing a little mini Supergirl season 1984 movie up first, and then the new 2026 movie out second. Although, funnily enough, on our schedule, it still says 2025 because it was there from, I guess, a long time ago when we thought it was going to be 2025.
Don't even know why.
But that is what's coming up next on Collector's Cut over both days next week on the movie schedule. So I think if you're on the YouTube, it won't even make that much of a difference because you're just used to an episode of either going out on 2 different days. If you're listening on the audio feed and you don't even know we do the sci-fi podcast, you're going to think it's weird that we have 2 next week and then none the following week. But that's just the way it's working out. And then we'll be back to a couple of other standalones after that before we get into our next proper season, which is at the start of August. So yeah, that is what's happening. So that is the show. You can, of course, support Collector's Cut by going over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV or do a YouTube membership as an alternative to get access to some of the bonus stuff that you can get for helping us out and making sure the show keeps coming. We do ratings rundown segments for every episode of Collector's Cut now, as well as the Atomic Cinema Experiment. So you can get those every week. Plus, monthly, we do a bonus show called Extra Reels, where we review some of the worst movies ever made. We just reviewed the 2004 Catwoman, and it lived up to its reputation. So you can go check out that, plus other 40 plus episodes of Extra Reels over there. So thanks to everyone who already does support us. It really does mean a lot. We do appreciate it. But that is the show. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We'll see you next time. Keep watching movies, and if you can get it, it's always nice to have diplomatic immunity.